as someone planning a multi-series short story universe following paranormal and monstrous creatures falling in love, I wanted to know the secret of writing short stories, especially short romance. Hey Dragonlings, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Skye. I'm a fantasy author who typically writes paranormal romance under the name SD Hegyes. And today we're going to be doing the next episode of Craft Symposium, where we're going to be talking about writing short romance for pleasure or profit. This is by Sadie B. I have read this one twice in the past. I read it the first time as an ebook, the second time as a paperback. And if you're interested in taking a look at it for yourself, I will leave the link for it in the description. Craft Symposium is a brainchild of mine that was actually implemented originally from an idea that someone else had. Tamara used to do these monthly book clubs where we would talk about a writing craft book. She called it a writer's workshop or writer workshop. And every month we would pick a new book to read that was craft related and discuss it as a panel at the end of the month. I've kind of implemented that same idea, except for the fact that obviously this is a panel discussion. I was hoping it would be, but it didn't turn out that way, just because of conflicting schedules and stuff like that. But the other reason is the fact that I don't want to just talk about craft books. I want to talk about all nonfiction books that may help build the craft. So it's not just going to be craft books. So that is where and how the Craft Symposium came to be. And originally these were live streams, but now they are more of a video format. This is the first of the video formats. And part of that reason is because of the fact that I got sick right around the same time I was supposed to film this particular one. And I just kept putting it off. And now here we are. I'm finally, many moons later, filming it for you guys. In this book, King shares tips and tricks for writing and marketing short story romances that you'll enjoy writing, but also make some money from. So that is one of the main things that she is trying to do in this book. She talks about her #1 marketing tools. She talks about key actions that you need to take in order to implement the processes in order to follow in her footsteps, basically. She talks about planning a series, talks about rapid release strategies, talks about key romance beats that are 10,000 words or less. My stories are actually between 10 to 20,000 words, so they're a little on the longer side, but she does describe the processes for writing something that's 10,000 words or less, which is more what she's talking about in the book than what I am implementing myself. And then she talks about the fact that you need to create your own definition of success. So those are the main things she's trying to talk about in this book. Why did we choose this book? I have been putting up polls every month for the Craft Symposium books and giving options, usually about 3, I think, options. And this book, as well as another book, tied for first place. And because it was for February and this one was romance related, whereas the other one was not, I decided to go with this one. Because I'm the one doing it, I was like, let me be the tiebreaker. And that's why we chose this book. The other reason that I picked it and put it on the poll in the first place is the fact that I am currently working on a interconnected series universe where it is 7 series of short stories, and each of those series has 7 stories. So in the end, there'll be 7 series and 49 short stories, and these are all in the monster romance category. I can honestly say that I have like 20 years experience with both reading and writing contemporary romance as well as paranormal fiction writing. I've also read books in both genres. And I've written a lot of short stories over the years. In fact, in some of my more recent vlogs, I've discussed the fact that I have been culling a lot of my older stories from like 20 years ago because of the fact that they are like flash fiction. All of them are less than 5,000 words. They seem to be more of excerpts versus actual stories. Like they do have a beginning, middle, and end, but they're more like a scene for something bigger and I have no intention of writing those bigger stories. So I've been culling a lot of stories, and I've written a lot of stories over the years because with just the ones I've culled, I have over 150 stories. So, and all of these were less than like 5,000 words. I think the longest one was actually closer to 3,000 rather than 5,000. And again, that was the longest one. So I've got a little bit of experience writing short stories. I've got a little bit of experience reading and writing both contemporary romance and paranormal romance. So I feel like I've got a handle on this, kind of. But it's always a good thing to like learn from someone who's making a profit from it and actually seeing how they do things and why they do the things they do. This book was structured with an intro, and then it followed 6 key steps, and each of the sections after that were one of the 6 key steps, which I found phenomenal. It was split into easy to read and understand steps so that you never felt like you were falling behind. And it was one of those things where if something didn't apply to you, move on. One of the things I did notice about this as well is that in those sections, in each of those steps, she wasn't laying out just a one way. She was like, this is something you could do, this is something you could do, this is something you could do. So I did like how that was structured as well. And speaking of how I liked it, let's go ahead and talk about what I did and did not like about the book. So as far as things I liked about the book, I liked the fact that it was easy to read. It was extremely easy to read. We haven't talked a lot on my channel recently about like grade levels. I've mentioned it here and there with the fact that I know that my writing style is more of a 5th, 6th grade reading level. And for me personally, I actually like it when nonfiction dumbs down. That's not quite the right word, which is why I'm putting that in air quotes. But essentially softens how information is laid out. And part of the reason I like that is because I'm very much in the mindset, I tell everyone when they're trying to explain something to me, I'm like, hey, tell it to me as if I'm a kindergartner because I don't know big words, kind of thing. Just because I'm more of a visual learner. So if you are telling me something rather than showing me something, it is harder for me to understand. And especially in the case of craft writing, with me reading it and not seeing visual representation of what you're talking about, it's really hard for me to understand it. So one of the things I did like about this book is the fact that the writing language that was used was on a much simpler level, and it was very easy to read and understand. The other things that I liked about it was the fact that there was discussions of reasons why different things might not work for you. Again, she had different examples like try this or this or this kind of things. I really did enjoy that. I loved all of the examples. There were a lot of examples of everything. Not just like things she's tried, but things other people have tried that work for them. And I really liked that. And another thing, again, going back to all of this, it was laid out as there's no such thing as one size fits all. I really enjoy that because that is true of everyone's writing. No one's going to do things the exact same way. I'm not going to go through the book and do the same things that Sadie B does. I'm going to be different in the way I do things. I'm already doing things. The way she did lay this out, she was talking more about contemporary romance, whereas I write monster romance. She talks about doing spicy scenes. I try to avoid spicy scenes. So like there are differences, and I really enjoy the fact that she laid out all of these steps and saying, this may not work for you, try this instead. Or if this may not work for you, try this instead. Or try a combination of things. So that was really enjoyable. And I like it when authors do not kind of box you in and try to tell you this is the way to do it and this is the only way you can do it. And she did not do that in this book. I love that. I love that so much. The one thing I did not like about this book is the market research. And this is more of a personal thing. I completely understand where she's coming from with the market research. And I agree with her as far as the market research. But I, on a personal level, think part of the reason there are so many complaints, both from authors and readers, about the fact that they feel like they're reading the same story in a different font is because of market research. And now, again, this is absolutely a personal opinion. I do like the fact that she tells you to do market research because she's absolutely right. If you're trying to make money off your stories, you should be doing market research. You should know your genre. You should know what tropes your readers want. You should be looking at those top 100 lists and being like, yes, yes, yes. And it's like one of those things that's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing, because you're not going to please everyone. And no matter what you do. However, if you are wanting to make this a career, if you are wanting to make this a profitable career, you do need to do that market research that she talks about. You need to know what readers are expecting in your genre. You need to know what readers want in your genre. And the only way that can happen is if you are doing that market research. And the reason, my personal opinion, the reason I did not like this, and again, not anything against the book, this is just for me personally, what I am taking from the book. For me personally, that doesn't work because I'm doing this more as a hobby. Would I like it to be part-time or full-time? Absolutely. But my main thing is to write the stories that I want to write. And I personally do not like a lot of what is out there that is in those top 100s. So for me personally, I do not like the market research section. I do think it is important for anyone else though. Just for me personally, I'm just like, I could skip this part. That's all I'm saying. And then another thing I didn't like is exactly, I talked about it in liking it, I also did not like the one size fits all. And again, this is one of those caveats. For me personally, the one size fits all is a beautiful thing. I love it because it's absolutely true. Everyone does their own thing. However, sometimes it feels like you're given too many options of things like try this or this or this or this. And if this doesn't work, try a combination. And that, I think, especially for someone who is new to writing, can get confusing. It's not wrong. It just can get confusing. And I think the way that it was talked about, the way it was laid out in this book, again, very easy to understand. But I think for someone brand new who has never read or written romance before, and has especially never read or written short romance, because a lot of what's advertised is more novels. There's a lot of big emphasis on reading longer books versus shorter books. There's a lot of emphasis on books getting longer and longer. We joke all the time, meaning like, as we read books, we were like, this could have been 100 pages shorter. But it feels like genre expectations are wanting longer and longer books versus shorter books. And so as someone who has never read a short story and is wanting to dive into that, it does feel a little bit, again, personal opinion, just my thoughts, it does feel a little bit like there should be more of a one-size-fits-all if you want to make a profit from it. Again, not true. There is no such thing as one-size-fits-all. But I feel like if you're just getting started, if you're not experienced with the genre at all, if you haven't read a bunch of short stories, or at least romance short stories, if you have no knowledge whatsoever, it's overwhelming. That's what I mean more than anything. It's very much of too much too soon kind of thing. Having all those options laid out is a beautiful thing, but for someone who has no experience whatsoever, it feels like it's too much. So again, not a bad thing. Definitely not a bad thing. It's just something that, as coming in as an experienced reader, I was like, this all makes sense. Coming in as an inexperienced reader, I'm like, holy shit, this is a lot to take in. What do I do? And it feels a lot like one of those things where it's like, can you just tell me what to do kind of things, because there is so much information. Some important lessons that I pulled from the book personally. There was a lot of emphasis on decisions. There's decisions you have to make when you're deciding if this is something for you. When you're writing short romance and you're trying to make a profit from it, but you're wanting to write things that you enjoy, you have to choose your why. Why are you writing this? Why are you wanting to make money from this? Why did you choose this genre? Why did you choose this length? Why did you choose short stories? So you have to decide what your why is. Why are you doing this? My why is the fact that I have all these short stories ideas. I have all these stories ideas. They might not necessarily work as short stories. Some of them can, some of them won't. But I definitely enjoy short story format. I read a lot of short stories throughout the year. And one of the things that I like doing is telling stories in shorter formats. I personally like short stories, and I want to write short stories. And I want to write the stories that I want to tell. So that is my why. I want to write stories that I enjoy, that others may enjoy as well. The next thing you have to decide on is your goals. What is your goal? Is your goal to write stories that you love that also make money? Is your goal to write stories that you don't necessarily love but do enjoy that also make you money? Is your goal like mine? My goal is to write these stories that I enjoy and maybe make some money from them as well. Like, it would be nice if I could make some money as well. But I'm not necessarily saying this is the one way I would like to go, kind of thing. I have other options in the back of my mind. And the last thing for you to decide is, what is success for you? What do you define as success? For me, success is writing the stories that I enjoy reading, because I like to go back and read my own stories. I am very much the kind of person that I will every once in a while go back and read my stories and get very angry with myself because I didn't finish the damn book. For me, success would be writing stories that I thoroughly enjoy and publishing them, and hopefully bringing some of that joy to others as well. So for me, success is completing full stories. And getting them to the point where they're publishable. The next lesson I learned was all about strategy. You got to pick what subgenres or tropes you're going to be writing about, whether you want to go through KU, which is Kindle Unlimited, which is an Amazon exclusive program, or if you want to take it wide, meaning that you're publishing to not only Amazon, but like Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and all these other programs, sales units. I'm not even certain the right term I'm looking for. But those are some of the things that you have to think about. For me personally, I'm writing paranormal romance. I've got all kinds of tropes that I enjoy writing that I'll include. I will probably just be using these in KU. So like, these are all things that you have to think about in your strategy when you're like planning out. This is before you even write a single word. When you're planning out what you're going to be doing. Next, you got to decide whether you're going to do series or standalones, whether or not you're going to do like shared worlds. I talked about the fact that I'm going to be writing an interconnected universe with 7 series, and I've been like slowly trying to piece together how these series are connected to each other. I've actually talked about this in a vlog recently, so that's one of the things you have to think about. You have to consider word and page count links, because that determines where you are categorized as far as like what your romance is considered. So like for me, I have been writing somewhere between 10 to 20,000 words for my short stories. I know technically they're no longer short stories. I think the official term is that anything over like, I think it's 7,500 words. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. I'm not too worried about it, but I think over 7,500 words, 7,600 words, somewhere in that region, it's considered a novelette. I hate the term novelette personally. Again, personal opinion. To me, there is short story, novella, novel. And for me, short stories are anywhere from 5 to 20,000 words, or actually for me personally, they're 10 to 20,000 words, because I don't usually tend to write shorter than 10,000 words these days. My novellas are 20 to 50,000 words, and my novels are 50 plus thousand words. So again, this is all personal preference. These are things you need to think about as far as your strategy goes before you even start writing stories, if you're going to be doing short stories. You have to figure out your pricing points. For me personally, my stories are going to be in KU, so if you are in the KU, if you have a KU subscription, it'll be free. I have a pricing strategy depending on the length of the book, and I don't remember it off the top of my head. I want to say it's 99 cents for anything that's 10,000 words, but anything that's closer to 20,000 words, I've got them priced $2.99. Don't quote me on that. I'll do another video at some point if you're interested in talking about pricing and how I price stuff. It's gonna be a very short video. Maybe I'll just put that in a vlog. Another thing you have to think about and strategize is your release schedule. Are you going to be doing rapid release? Are you going to be releasing, like writing the book, releasing it, writing, releasing? Or are you gonna do what I'm doing? I am holding off on an entire short story series. Currently, I'm working on the first of these 7 series. I am trying to at least draft the first draft of all 7 stories before I even put up a pre-order for the first one. That way, all that's left is like editing and rewriting and getting it polished for publication. And then I plan on releasing every 2 weeks, starting with the first one. So the first one will come out, and then 2 weeks later, the second one will. Then the third one, 2 weeks after that, until all 7 are out. It will span across the, I think, 3 to 4 months. I think closer to 4 months, because there's 7 of them. Some months have 5 weeks, some only have 4, and that does affect the publication cycle. That's something you have to think about. That's something you have to plan for. That's something you have to strategize. The next section with the lessons I learned talked about writing all the words. You have to figure out if you're a plotter or if you're a discovery writer. I personally am a mixture of both. With my short stories, I tend to have an inkling of an idea of like the main portion of the plot. Like, I know this character's gonna get together. I might have an inkling of like one scene from the book, but the rest of it, I'm just like, Oh, that's kind of cool. Let's do that. And keep going. You have to think about the characters. A lot of people do like character beat sheets or character sheets, character interviews and stuff like that. You have to think about your story beats. There is an example in here of story beats using Romancing the Beat by Gwen Hegyes. I will include a link for that in the description if you're interested in checking that out. As far as like the story beats go, she's got that example. I think there is a couple other examples as well. That one is the main one I remember because it is the most commonly used in romance. You have to think about your blurb, which is the back description on your book, the one that you see on the Amazon sales page. You have to decide whether or not you're going to include smexy times in your books. Woo-woo. I try not to include smexy times, not to say that I will never include smexy times, because very much so some of my books, some of my stories will have smexy times. But it's one of the things you have to consider when you're writing. You have to think about editing. I personally do a self-edit and then I use beta readers and critique partners for short stories. Other projects are a little bit differently, but for short stories, it's self-edits from me, beta readers, final edits, boom, done. Then you have to think about scheduling. This goes back to planning your release strategy. You have to think about how long it takes you from start of idea to publication of idea, and you have to plan that out and you have to work that into your schedule, especially like if this is not going to be your full-time job. For me currently, I am unemployed, so this is my full-time job. But if it is not your full-time job, you need to plan about everything from the writing to the editing to the sending it out to beta readers if you go that step, or editor if you go that step, or just go straight to publication if that's the step you take. Everyone's going to be a little bit differently on how they do it, but you have to make decisions about all of that and you have to figure all that out. It's something I have been considering lately. I don't have an exact strategy yet or schedule yet. It's something I'm working on and I'm slowly developing my own schedule. From there, one of the lessons I learned from this book is publishing prep. You've got to choose your formatting style. I myself am a formatter. I will eventually be opening up for new clients to do formatting if you is something that you are not interested in doing for yourself. You have to do covers for short stories. I tend to make my own covers. Maybe someday I will hire someone else to do covers. I really do want, especially for this series that I was talking about, the Interconnected seven short story series, I do want to hire an illustrator to do character art that I will include on the cover, but I myself will do the cover. You've got to do final blurb. You have to figure out that final description that you're going to be putting on the Amazon page or wherever you're publishing to, their sales page, as well as on the back of your book if you do paperbacks. You got to think about front and back matter. You got to think about keywords and categories, no matter where you're publishing to. You got to figure out whether you're going to do pre-orders. That's something I've been debating about. With my series, I absolutely do want to do pre-orders because I want to schedule, for a series, I want to schedule all the books at once. But for standalones, I'm probably just going to release them as I finish them. It's going to be like, oh, I finished it, here you go. And then you got to consider reviews. I personally do not look at reviews. Some people look at reviews and use that to strategize their next book. Some people look at reviews and be like, okay, I need to improve this in the future. I don't personally look at reviews. They are not for me because I'm telling stories that I want to write, and once it's out of my hands, how you interpret my writing is up to you, but I am writing the story for me first. So as long as I like it, I am happy. And I care what you think. I want you to love it. But at the same time, your opinion of my story is not going to change my opinion of my story. So in a way, I don't care what you think. I know that sounds terrible, but some people do like looking at reviews. Some people can't look at reviews. They'll be like, okay, I need you to read this review for me. Just tell me if it's good or not, because I don't want to know if it's not. Because they physically or emotionally can't handle bad reviews. It depends on who you are as a person, how you handle reviews, as well as like what you're going to be using that review for in the future. Because maybe you just need it, you need that 5-star review as a booster, be like, oh yes, I do know what I'm doing, thank you. And some people can look at that 5-star review and go, oh, no thanks, I did not need to read this. I don't need you adoring me in my book. I also learned a little bit about marketing. There's a strong emphasis on email lists, which is a newsletter, because when everything else goes away, you've still got access to your email lists. Because let's face it, MySpace was around many, many moons ago, and now Facebook has pretty much replaced it. But a few years from now, maybe Facebook won't exist. So even when social media disappears, your email list won't, is what it comes down to. The next thing to possibly think about is a newsletter builder. This goes back to that email list. You use a newsletter to build that email list. You sometimes have things called cookies. There's a book called Newsletter Ninja that talks about this in more depth. I don't remember the Tammy Labrecque, I think is the name. I could be wrong about the name of the author, but it's a very good book to read if you want more information about newsletters and how to set them up and what to do for them and stuff like that. You got to think about promotions, both free and paid. You have to think about your reader magnet. Again, this goes back to your newsletter. Reader magnet, I mentioned that cookie. That's something that you can give your newsletter subscribers that's only for them. No one else gets it. That they can use to be like, huh, okay, I like this person. I like their work. Let's carry on. There's things to think about as far as like launch marketing, whether you're going to do like giveaways or promotions, or a lot of people I've been noticing lately have been doing like launch live streams where you get to meet the author and talk with him live as on launch day, or book signings and stuff like that. And then the other thing is like backlist marketing. The more books you put out, the bigger your backlist is. One of the things I am personally doing is I am not marketing my books until I've got a larger backlist that I can market. So for me personally, I want at least one complete series before I start marketing the first book in that series. I want a bunch of standalones out before I market even one of those standalones. And a lot of that does to the fact that I can revolve around the different stories and I'm not just posting about one thing all at once. I can publish about this one and then this one this week, this one this week, this one this week. And I can just alternate through the whole cycle. That is one of the many reasons why I haven't started marketing and what I plan to do in the future. And then the final lesson that I learned from this book is about reviews and growing. Again, we're going back to those reviews. You want to start tracking your sales metrics, see what's working and what isn't. Especially like if you're someone who does tropes, what tropes are selling better than others, what books containing what tropes are selling better than previous books. You also want to use, again, going back to that as reviews, you want to use them as feedback. Sometimes, I personally, again, do not, but some people do, and they want to read those reviews and be like, I liked it when they did this. I'm a fan of this trope. And you want to have that knowledge to look back on to use to build your stories in the future, maybe. Those were all lessons that I learned from reading this book. Do I recommend this book? Absolutely. 100%. If you are interested in writing short stories, if you're planning on publishing them for profit, especially if you're planning on doing anything related to romance. Again, this was very much catered towards contemporary romance, and my strategy is a little bit different because I have a different goal and I'm writing a different subgenre because I am writing more sweet, less spicy monster romance. So what I am doing is going to be different than what is necessarily talked about in this book. But 100%, I do recommend it if you're planning on writing short stories, especially if you're planning on writing short romances. I think there's a lot of good information in here. But even if you are not planning on writing short romance, I think there's some strategies that are in the book, some things that are talked about in the book that would benefit you as well. Especially like if you are, again, still writing short stories, but in another genre, or maybe you're writing longer works, but in romance. So I feel like there's a lot of tidbits that can be taken from this no matter what you write, but it's especially good if you write short stories and short story romances especially. So there you have it. If you're thinking about writing short romances or short stories and making a career from it, I highly recommend that you read this book. It's Writing Short Romance for Pleasure and Profit by Sadie B. King. If you have come this far in the video and you've liked what you've seen, feel free to leave me a heart emoji, any color, and I will see you in the next video. My final question for you today before I pop off here is, do you write short romance? Have you read this book? And do you recommend it? What has been your favorite thing to read from it? So let me know all that in the comments below, and until next time, I will see you later. Bye, Dragonlings.